Welcome to week number 7, where we're talking about restaurant operations. Last week we talked about developing a restaurant, and now that we have that developed, we're going to think about how do we operate it. And so what you'll see in this instructional content is some information on front of house, back of house. I think a lot of us understand front of house operations if we've been to a restaurant before. And so I did find a blog on how to be a good server. It's one person's interpretation of what that means. And certainly in any establishment that you go to, they may have some service standards already established for you. Back of house is maybe a little bit less known or realized to people that are consumers because of the importance of purchasing, keeping the right par on stock, right? So that you have enough, but not too much, so that there's not spoilage. Whatever you get, first in, first out, to make sure that you're using the oldest product first. And then, of course, forecasting how many of each item you're going to sell, what's that average check, so that you can properly schedule, purchase, and things like that. I do have some instructional content on some basic operating ratios that are very similar to the rooms ones, so let me know if you have any questions on that. And then we'll check in and do a little practice on those ratios to make sure we understand it. And now build your own restaurant too. So this is going to be building on what we did last week. So taking those 3 items, and if you gave me more than 3 menu items, you can just pick any 3, and the cost. And then we're going to calculate the food cost for each dish. And I'm going to show you this in a couple of different formats that I've practiced with before. Okay, so here's my example of a burger. And so I've thought about what my ingredients are going to be. I'm going to need a hamburger patty. I'm going to need a bun. I'm going to need mayo, mustard, ketchup, lettuce, tomato. So how do I know how much a hamburger patty costs? Well, let's take a look. Let's go to Safeway.com, and I can see here I can get 4 patties here for $7.49 as an example. If I wanted a different cut of meat, I could look here. I have Costco.com, and I have some Wagyu. And so this would be 4 total packs. It's 4 pounds total. And so I would need to know for my ingredients how many ounces or how many pounds is my hamburger going to be. Is it going to be a 1/4 pound? So then I would take the amount and I would divide it by 16, because I could know I can make 16 patties out of that burger quantity that you see there, or that meat quantity that you see there. Or is it going to be a 1/2 pound? So we would need to do a little bit of math on that. I could also go to Google and I could say, what is the cost for a hamburger bun? And I take a look at these different kinds of hamburger buns, and maybe I decide this is a 6 count of buns for $5.49. Maybe this one is a 4 count, but it's $4.99. And so I'm investigating all of these prices. I can also take a look and see, so mayonnaise, well, this container is 30 ounces for $7.99. Look at this. This is 20 ounces for the same price. So you want to think about how much mayonnaise are you going to need in a month? Is it because you don't want to buy too much that it goes bad, but of course you'd want to buy the most for the least price, right? Which would be this one here, or maybe even a larger one if you went and bought it at Costco or something like that. So going back to that spreadsheet, so I decided on the one from Safeway, right, for hamburger patties for $7.49, and I took this divided by this to be able to understand it's $1.87 for 1 patty. I went with the 6 buns for $5.49, so I know that that's 92 cents. So let's say I have 30 ounces of that mayonnaise, and that was $7.99. So I can easily say, okay, well, I'm going to need one ounce of that. So 1 ounce is 26 cents. And I'd be able to do that for each of these until I got a total price. I've done this a couple of different times too. So I have an example on spaghetti, right, where I, read the ingredients from the recipe and I was able to cost it out. And I said, okay, so this recipe, serves 6 people, but I'm only selling 1 plate of it. So I take the amount for 6 people, and I divide it by 6 so that I get what is the price for one dish, and it's $10.11. Well, my menu price was selling for $18, so that's a pretty high food cost of 56%. So then I could take a look and see what are the most expensive things that I'm using here. And I see, gosh, you know, the canned tomatoes, maybe I can look for a different, better vendor for that. And gosh, the basil leaves, do I need fresh basil leaves? Yes, I do. Or no, I don't, and I can use something that's a little bit less expensive. I also see that, gosh, you know, the veal is double the price of the pork and the beef. And the recipe that I selected did equal parts of beef, pork, and veal, but the veal is much more expensive. So maybe I just go beef and pork with it, and I eliminate that higher cost item, and so on and so forth. So that's another example. I have here a tuna roll where I looked up all of the different things, right? And this had caviar, so that was kind of more expensive. But I was selling the roll for $60, and it only cost me $13.78 for one serving. So that was a 23% food cost. Again, taking the cost, right? $13.78 for one serving divided by the sale. What's the selling price for one serving? So $13.78 divided by 60. And finally, another example I did, kind of just going the other way, was pot stickers. So how much were these ingredients? How much did I need of it? Getting it down to this common denominator of ounces I found was a good way to go, so that I could see what that would yield me. So those are just a couple of ways that you can determine food cost. So as we wrap up week 7, hopefully you've learned a little bit more about how to manage a restaurant by thinking about the front of house activities, how the forecast can be made, and the financials in restaurant management through the operating ratios exercise, the build your own restaurant 2 exercise, as well as keep in mind a couple of our upcoming assignments. You should have a little bit more information now to be able to be thinking about that food and beverage project and then the assignment mind map, both of which are not due this week. The other item that I have is from the presentations, the beverage presentations that have been submitted. There is an ask and answer discussion posted, so you'll be able to take a look at some of your colleagues' presentations, and remember to ask a question and answer a question, and it does not have to be on your own presentation. So I wish you a great week ahead, and I will see you soon.